All right, it's the KwinnPop podcast. I'm Peter Dawson,
I'm James Bullock.
and today things are gonna get big.
Almost like gifted big.
I was thinking more big as in like there's not enough hours in the day.
Mm.
You could say
Okay.
colossal.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it could even cover a whole beach.
Yep, probably. I don't know if we needed that other reference, but I
Yeah,
approve of
just
you
throw it
slipping
out
that in
there.
right at the end there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about video games, television, and movies, and we're going to start off like we always do with a video game, except when we're doing our best of stuff, which is over now. So we're going to talk
this is
about...
the first one since the last three we've done best ofs.
Yep. We may have to find a way to do that more efficient next year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I liked it though.
It was good. But in this case, we're going to talk about the recent release. Like, this is only... it just came out, like...
Tuesday. Of this recording, it was Tuesday.
I was going to say, yeah, so it'll be a bit over a week since this come out, so this is pretty timely for us. We're going to be talking about Shadow of the Colossus, specifically the HD remake, not remaster, remake, that just came out on the PlayStation 4. So just to cover the background real quick, Shadow of the Colossus is a 2005 video game, which was created by Team Ico.
Right.
They're probably the most important people to mention. I think there's a few other things in there, and of course, Sony published it directly, so it was this is why it's primarily on
PlayStation
Sony products.
console.
Yeah. So yeah, specifically the PlayStation, because the original came on the PlayStation 2 in 2005.
Right.
And now 13 years later, we've got an HD remake, and it is genuinely considered one of the it's usually considered one of the greatest games of all time. I think it says so on the Wikipedia, and if nothing else, it was mentioned as a main character's favorite video game of all time in The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about that show and how much it claims to be about nerd culture, and it isn't always, but in that case, it's like that's one of the more impressive things I can say about the show. It's like, you actually picked a solid choice for best game ever. Okay.
Especially if you want to be artsy-fartsy about it.
Oh, I know. It's not like when they were playing Halo and they kept talking about med packs.
Yeah.
Deep cut. Anyway, so the basic premise of Shadow of the Colossus is that our main character, I believe it's pronounced Wander, right?
Right.
Yeah, Wander. He is basically unremarkable protagonist of sorts who has a girl named Mono. Or is it Mono?
I always say mono.
Yeah, I know, it's one of those things, and he takes her to a shrine, and she's seemingly dead or in some sort of deep magical coma.
Yeah, well, in the opening, they say, like, the soul has been released so you can't return it back to the body, so that pretty much tells me that she's dead.
Yeah, fantasy death, which is still pretty much death. I mean, let's say just like, she's not really dead. So Mono needs to find a way to resurrect this woman who he presumably loves. I mean, a lot of this is done via facial animations in the narration.
Right. It's very little dialogue. It's really left a lot up to the player's interpretation,
which is pretty cool, and they do it quite well. Because I mean, if you ever played Ico, a lot of that was just about the intimacy of two characters holding hands and not really being able to communicate.
Right.
Which was kind of an interesting thing. So like they love doing this type of thing, and of course we saw that with The Last Guardian. Yep. Where you couldn't really understand what's going on, but you may do. And so Wanderer goes off with his loyal horse, Agro, to battle the Colossi, or the Colossus. And there's 16 in all, yeah? Yeah, it's 16, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they had to cut a few because of the PlayStation 2 limitations, so...
Right, because, didn't they want, like, 21 or something like that?
Yeah, it was supposed to be in the 20s, and they said some of them they had to cut because they couldn't fit it all on the disc, and some of them they just felt were too redundant.
Yeah, and so the basic premise is, the core gameplay is you navigate this pretty massive world on your horse, and you can use your magic, because you play as Wander, of course, and you hold up your magic sword, which can help guide you in the direction of the Colossus, and then using your sword and your bow and arrow, you have to fight these massive creatures that have, of course, funny little vulnerable spots you need to strike with your sword, or can do it with your bow. Although,
sometimes you'll randomly hit the spot by accident with your bow.
Yeah, the ideal method is to climb up the Colossus and hit it with your sword. So it's essentially a series of tense climbing puzzles in a way.
Right.
And these are the only enemies you really fight. So I mean, it's mostly just 16 boss battles.
Yeah, that was the thing that really made it stand out at the time, was the fact that was all it was based around, was the fact that there's no minor enemies in the same vein as Ico with they had the little shadow enemies that would pop up once in a while. Even the Last Guardian was the same thing. Mm-hmm. These were just legit boss battles all the way through.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of like what a lot of recently popular games have done with the very minimal stuff. Like there's that game Escape where you kind of like end up bonding with a lot of people and stuff, and you about the implications of everything that's going on. It was like that, but it was done back in 2005, and it was a full release game, and they did their best to justify it by the fact that there's, like I said, there's 16 Colossi. I mean, it takes easily probably 10 hours or so to beat the game.
Yeah, easily, and that's one of those things that when you're first playing it, like a lot of games, it's gonna take you a lot longer because you have no idea where you're going, you have no idea what you're doing, and
even with GameFAQs. GameFAQs was a thing in 2005.
Right, and YouTube wasn't here. We didn't have playthrough videos to guide us along the way either. So,
well, YouTube had just started out in 2005. Right,
but I mean, we didn't have playthrough videos.
No, we did not have playthroughs.
No,
I mean, you do now. You lucky.
you youngsters, you little lucky entitled youngsters
who don't have to drive to the store to buy food. That's still one of my favorite quotes of all time. I'm an old man. I have to drive to the store to buy food. I'm going to reference that all the time if I can help.
Yes.
Anyway, so that, but I mean, so it's a lot of climbing, and you fight these interesting bosses that are all very unique, and of course, they live up to the name Colossus. I mean, the smallest one is, what is he? He's still pretty big.
Yeah, I've always said that it's one of the later ones. I've always noticed to me is the smallest one. It's kind of like a dog that rams an area. This is one little area that he tries to ram, he gets scared by fire. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only one I think that's like you do consider small.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too because I mean, like the Colossi for the most part seem relatively harmless. There's just they're big freakish monsters, and it's like well, I need to kill them, so no more.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, which is very funny because as you know, I've started playing it.
Yeah,
and I'm about 9 in. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had the chance to sit down and play it like I wanted to yesterday. But the fact of the matter is that the third Colossi, which is kind of become the poster boy now, because like the first Colossi was the poster boy on the original release that was on the cover of the game, and now kind of like the one with the big sword, which is the third one, has kind of become the poster boy. Mm-hmm. I forgot that when you walk up on its battle area, the thing is sleeping. Like it's just laid out relaxing. It's not giving any harm whatsoever to anybody. So like all these Colossi throughout the entire game are just in their little area by themselves, not harming anything because in reality there's nothing around besides birds and lizards.
Yep. And then you just walk up and you're like, well, no more.
Yep. I'm gonna have to climb you. I'm gonna have to stab you, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're gonna die.
Yeah, no, and the design of the Colossi is pretty solid because I mean, none of them are ultimately that samey. Although there's still some familiar design elements because I mean, especially because you got like, some are flying through the air, some are underwater, and then you got a mix of organic and inorganic stuff. I mean, of course, the signatures. There's one dude I can't remember which one it is. He's got butt fur.
We had a few of those with butt fur.
What?
We've had a few, but I believe the sixth one has a giant beard that you had to grab onto and climb, and it's funny because like the first one, as I was alluding to earlier, the first one, the second, and the third one, both have swords to a certain extent.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, but only the third one uses it. The first one just like carries it around because it's cool. Yeah. So
look, you got a sword. You got
a giant stone sword.
Yeah. You do that in Texas now legally. Not too long ago, they passed a sword law in Texas. You're just gonna see, like, that'll be the classic. You'll see an anime fan walking down, and you have a cowboy cosplayer, and it'll just be gun versus katana all over again.
All over again.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Hey, if they're stupid enough to do that in public,
it's on you. Yeah. It's on you. It's going to be a meme, and it's going to be on you. That's it.
Yeah, simple as that. So it's a pretty solid remake. It definitely looks really pretty, which is not hard to do because the game was already pretty from the get-go. But if you just rebuild it,
I was really amazed And the funny thing about it, I really wasn't that amazed about the Colossi, how they looked in terms of the up graphics. I was more amazed about the world, just the amount of beauty now that just stands out. It was one moment very early in the game. It's right before you fight the second Colossi. You have to go over a little bridge. And it just wowed me. And all it was just a stone bridge, but it just looked so impressive compared to the original offering, which, like you said, even on PS2 still looked great. I had to give credit to Blue Point. They really did a good job. I did not expect it to be that awe-inspiring. But in terms of the Colossi, the first one that really gave me jitters, like gave me goosebumps when I was playing it in terms of how it looked and how it felt, was the fifth one, which was the first flying creature. That was just incredible, jumping onto it, and you can see the wind running past you. You actually feel like you're fighting against the wind as you're playing it yourself, not just Wanderer, but yourself. You feel like you're going against the wind as you're trying to hold on to the giant flying creature, which is exactly what you could have hoped for a remake like this.
No, it's definitely it's a very epic game, is probably the easiest way to put it. Like, despite its simple premise, it's easily one of the most epic games.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that. Even if because it's one of those games where I hate to say, like, you had to be there, when it happened, to really get the full impact of why it's so important, because so many other games have kind of taken that formula and gone past it. But even now, it's still one of those games where if you could just kind of take yourself back from it and just experience it as it is, it's one of the most epic games I think I've ever played. And it was funny because leading up to the release, I kept thinking, like, okay, this is one of my favorite PS2 games of all time. I'm so excited to play it. And the more I thought about it, I realized, man, this is actually one of my favorite games of all time. If there was a possibility that you could be stuck on a desert island and actually have electricity to play any video game that you've ever played, and that's it, Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games for me. And now, definitively, the PS4 version is the hands-down best version. And one of the big reasons for that, to me, in comparison to the PS2 version, even the PS3 version, because they had a HD re-release with Ico packaged together back, I believe it was 2012 or so when that came out. Maybe it was 2011.
2011, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, 2011. And one of the biggest issues I felt that even the HD re-release that came out on PS3 were frame rate drops. And that was, especially on PS2, that was just horrendous. I mean, people just don't know. People complain about frame rate drops now. You don't know what we had experienced with the PlayStation 2 with Shadow of the Colossus, but the PS4 version has been just silky smooth. Like, everything that you would have expected it to be back then is exactly what it is now. In terms of gameplay, in terms of frame rate, in terms of graphics, of course. You could have only hoped for graphics like this back then, of course, but now, to me, it's like the perfect version of this game that we've always wanted to have, but just never kind of expected it to have, because it really had a cult following. A lot of the Team Ico games have cult followings and don't have that same grandeur in terms of anticipation or want, say, as a Metal Gear Solid game, or I'm trying to think of something more. Of course, Call of Duty, and even like Legend of Zelda, because it so closely resembles that now.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Breath of the Wild. Because I know
Breath of the Wild, it feels like it might have pulled, not all of it, of course, but at least a little bit of inspiration from Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, especially with the Divine Beast thing. I know a lot of people were complaining about, like, why couldn't they make the Divine Beast like the Colossi?
Kind of did.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just really weird that a lot of people compared it to like this Sony version of Zelda, and now a lot of people are saying that the Breath of the Wild is like now Shadow of Colossus version of Zelda, which is crazy.
With plenty of Skyrim mixed in.
Yeah. What was your biggest issues with the original release of Shadow of the Colossus?
Despite how pretty it was, I was never that blown away with the scenery. Like, I've changed over time, where it was one of the ones I ended up revisiting at points when I just kind of wanted to kill half an hour, and I would just roam through the game world, because that could get soothing. Like, that's one of those games, it's fun to just kind of, because any good sandbox game, it's fun just to roam.
Yeah.
You don't even have to necessarily be causing mischief or anything like you would in GTA. It's like, I'm just going to drive up the sidewalk now. Or Red Dead, you're just going to ride through the desert.
I'm going to tie somebody out and put them on a train.
Yep. or put him in front of a train.
Put him in front of a train. Yeah, that's right.
You got a few options.
Yeah, you got a few.
But it's just, I don't think I fully appreciated how much nuance there was. Like, nowadays, especially because I played games where it's like, I beat him once in like less than 10 hours. I'm just like, why would I ever play this again?
Right.
Shadow of the Colossus, there's a soothing feeling, and like, the story is solidly impactful for its minimalism.
Very much so. I can take away from Team Ico's storytelling in the most minimalist of ways that every time, this is 3 games in a row where somehow they've gotten me emotional by the end of the game. Last Guardian, like I said before, actually had me almost in tears. Like, that was close. And Shadow of the Colossus was right there with it, too.
Ico, I wouldn't say it got me in tears, but...
No, that was actually a completely different feeling. Like I said, I got emotional with that, but it was almost like a hopeful emotion. Like, man, I'm so happy that these kids, it turned out the way it did for these 2 kids. Yeah. Whereas, like, Colossus and Last Guardian, not to spoil anything, but both of those had the complete opposite feeling when I walked away from them.
It happens. It's like, they're definitely good at manipulating your emotions without feeling too overly manipulative. It's not like, in the first scene, you're like, you have to choose to kill a dog or something.
Right.
And like, the game is like, feel emotion, because I mean, you can absolutely criticize The Last of Us for doing that with one of the early deaths that happens in that game. But it does color that character for the entirety of the game.
Exactly.
Which is why they needed to do it. In this case, they managed to tell a story without doing that. And then, like I said, well, I defend The Last of Us for basically having it as necessity. In this case, they didn't have that necessity, and they didn't think we needed to see what happened to Mono. We just need to know. We just saw through Wander's actions how much this mattered.
Right, how this was a big connection to him.
Yeah, and this is something I always appreciated, even when I first played it, and I was like, because there was all this hype, and everyone loved Ico, and I liked Ico, but at the end, it was just like, that's it? I wasn't like...
Yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I especially enjoyed the ending because I didn't expect it to be that. Mm-hmm. But, like you said, after coming off of that, and then comparing it to Shadow of the Colossus, it just feels like it's really... It felt like a first game in a series, really.
Yeah.
Even though I know, of course, it's not necessarily a prequel or a sequel, even though they do say spiritual successor or spiritual predecessor when it comes to talking about Shadow of the Colossus and Ico and the connections and even The Last Guardian.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily feel that raw emotion in terms of how much of a struggle it was for the characters in Ico compared to the characters, and specifically Wander and Shadow of the Colossus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hey, it was a popular enough game that both Adam Sandler and Don Cheadle learned to play it when they were making a movie.
Yeah.
I love bringing up that fact.
Yeah, the fact that we just don't have 2 guys just tapping buttons randomly and then some other person's playing off screen. We don't have that. That was
is
legit.
Incredible.
Right.
Like, that's good filmmaking in my eyes.
Yeah, very much so.
Any final thoughts on? Because there's not much else to say, I don't think.
No, because I mean, honestly, if you play the original, this is just the best version of it. If you haven't, I say give it a chance. It's definitely worth at least a rental. But in reality, to me, it's worth a purchase. It's only $40 for one thing. That's one big plus that I have to note, is the fact that they made sure, hey, it's a remake. We're not charging you full price. We'll give you a $40 game that's really essentially a $60 worthy game. It's a remake done right. That's the best way I can put it. It's a remake done right. And I hope people learn from it. Square Enix, I'm looking at you. Whenever we get the Final Fantasy VII remake.
We're getting some big stuff this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think on that note, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Because I think it's time for us to mutate.
Yeah. Because even though a lot of mutants are no longer with us.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about The Gifted, which was it's funny because when I first heard about it, I thought it was just going to be a mini-series, but no, it's a full-on, it's an event series, sort of, where it's like 13...
It's its own thing now.
Yeah, they're only doing 13 episodes. They're not going to do the North American traditional 22 or 23 or 24 or whatever.
Right.
Just only 13, which we saw also with The Good Place, just to name one example off the top of my head, because the second season of that just wrapped up.
Right.
And yeah, in this case, it's set in the X-Men universe. It's kind of weird though, because The Gifted follows basically 2 groups that end up meeting. The first group is the Strucker family,
Right.
which includes the father, Reed, who is a district attorney who basically convicted a bunch of mutants to prison.
Right, yeah, that's his job. Like he tries to make it sound like, "Hey, I'm here to help you. Just don't worry, you can get out of here." And of course, it never pans out that way.
Oh yeah, which is I've seen documentaries on CIA agents and how they basically turn war criminals into informants, and that's essentially what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you think he really is a good guy, it's like, no, that's the thing. They're trained to trick people. They usually also do some bad cop in there, but he's more of a good cop, although he still did some pretty terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And then, there's his wife, Caitlin Strucker, played by Amy Acker, which I bring up because, of course, she's a bit of a geek goddess, including her runs on Angel and with Person of Interest. That's the other one.
Right, that's the one.
That's just to say a couple. I'm sure there's plenty of other shows or movies or whatever that people are going to be mad I didn't mention. She's worked with Joss Whedon a lot.
Yeah.
Say that. Yeah, so there's the two of them, and then there's their kids, Lauren and Andy, both played, I think, by relatively newcomers, who are mutants. Twist.
Yeah, the big twist is that they're actually mutants, which we find out early in the first episode, so no big spoiler there. It's just one of the big reasons why the show is what it became.
It was kind of confusing for a while what specifically Andy could do, because Lauren could create force fields.
Right.
But it was
bubble force fields, no less.
Yeah, full bubble. It wasn't entirely clear for a while what Andy could do, and then it turns out it's full on telekinesis.
Yeah. I thought he was like Richter.
Oh,
I thought he just created earthquakes.
Yeah, because the world shake, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it was some kind of seismic disturbance or like it was localized, but no, it's full on telekinesis.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, evolution, and then the other. They're mutants. It happens.
It is a mystery.
And then the other main group is we got what was their technical name? Are they just the Underground?
The Mutant Underground.
Yeah, Mutant Underground. Right. I just want to make sure I get over it because they're not the X-Men. They're not the Brotherhood. They're the Mutant Underground.
They're the Mutant Underground.
And the four probably most prominent members we get are Eclipse.
Yeah.
Who has the ability to manipulate photons.
Yeah.
Polaris, who is the Lady Magnetism, so female Magneto essentially.
Yeah.
And I believe they established that within the show she is Magneto's daughter.
Yes, they do. Late in the show, they started alluding to it, but by the end of the season, they pretty much dropped the ball. Like, hey, this is Magneto's daughter, and you have his powers.
Yep. We also got Thunderbird, John Proudstar, the man they killed because they had to choose between Wolverine or Thunderbird, and they chose Wolverine.
Yeah.
In comic history, they thought the X-Men had too many characters, so they killed Thunderbird so they could keep Wolverine.
Killed Thunderbird.
Just that's my main piece of trivia when I think about Thunderbird. He's got like mutant tracking abilities or something like that.
Yeah, they went full blown Indian stereotype with this one.
His powers, yes. Like his character itself, not really.
No, not at all. He's a strong silent type in the I had to correct myself.
I wouldn't say he's a bad boy, but he's definitely a brooder.
Yeah, he's more of a brooder. No, he's not a bad boy at all. He's a brooder. He's definitely.
He's the good guy brooder. He's the Jon Snow more than a. Trying to think what a good brooding bad boy example would be, but I got nothing off the top of my head.
He's definitely the equivalent of Jon Snow in this.
He's absolutely Jon Snow.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the character whose actress I'm sure you want to talk about.
Jamie Chung's character Blink.
Yep. And Blink, of course, very popular character in the comics. She got popular in, I believe it was Exiles.
Yeah,
that was probably the big thing Blink was in, and she's an Asian teleporter is probably the easiest way to get.
Yeah, she can create portals and teleport. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she also very distinctively looks like a mutant, unlike some other characters. Like they usually give her freaky eyes and like weird scales or stuff on her face.
Yeah, she has those two scales, got weird ears and.
Yeah,
it's very interesting, and actually, I appreciate the fact. Like, I think midway through the season, they have a little flashback with her going out on a date, and we find out about like these mutants. We found out about the supremacists that hate her and hate mutants and everything else, and her boyfriend sucks. He's just a punk.
Yep, it's true.
He just punks out.
Yeah, so that's most of the main cast, but then the sorry, I want to get through the main cast before we get too far into the subplot.
Oh yeah.
No, that's a good anecdote though. That sounded condescending. I'm sorry. Anyway, focusing. Yeah, the other main character is I believe his name is Jace Turner. I always just call him Turner.
Yeah, it's Jace Turner, but they call him Turner throughout the whole series.
Yeah, he's one of those villains. Last name primarily, and he works for Sentinel Services, which X-Men fan. Sentinels, of course, are these giant enforcer robots that are like hunt down the mutants, secure the mutants, etc. Basically,
but they went a complete different direction with the Sentinels this time.
Yeah, now Sentinel Services are basically an anti-mutant, just sort of government agency, which are mostly just dudes.
Yeah,
they do have some secret weapons, like they do. Minor spoiler: they do have mutants working for them to a degree.
Yeah, but the first episode we see, to me, I think, are these like rudimentary versions of the Sentinels with the little spider babies? Like
right, I forgot about those. Yeah, they're like,
the very beginning of the season.
Well, they're like the Sentinels from the Matrix almost.
Oh yeah, true.
Same name and everything.
Yeah,
except they don't call them that in this. I forget what they call them. I think they're just Seekers.
Yeah, I can't remember if they really gave them a name. They just sent them out there and told them to find the mutants, and then they did. And like midway through the season, thanks to good old Andy, it was like it don't even matter anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't really the most important thing.
Yeah,
and so the essential premise is that it's after some big battle between the Brotherhood and the X-Men. They've both disappeared conveniently, so they can reference the X-Men without really showing the X-Men. And the rest of the world's kind of dealing with this fallout, which is seeing the establishment of Sentinel Services, mutants mostly getting hunted down, being discriminated against, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not allowed to use their powers in public, and all this stuff. And when the Struckers find out their kids are mutants, they have to go on the run, so they end up meeting the mutant underground, and they're trying to fight back against Sentinel Services. That's probably the basic premise. I don't know. Yeah,
that's a great way of summarizing without spoiling anything, honestly.
Yeah, and then beyond the main characters we mentioned, there's a huge supporting cast. I mean, what's her name? Sonya Dreamer. That's her name. She pops up. She has the ability to kind of like give her memories through dreams to people. Basically,
yeah, that was a very big deal. The first half of the season.
Yeah, that was a really kind of awkward plot point.
Yeah, like.
And they're trying to escape into Mexico or Canada, and that's not so easy. I believe it's primarily Mexico.
Yeah, they were trying to do the reverse Logan.
Yeah, because Logan, everyone was going to Canada because Canada's cool with mutants. We have our own superhero teams and everything.
Yeah,
we keep constantly dying in the comics.
Yeah, and that was one thing that I was expecting to see was just like the massive. I was really hoping for a convoy. I really was.
Mm-hmm.
We're heading to Mexico, and like something happens right at the border. I really wanted something to happen at the border right there, and then we have like just random Mexican mutants showing up.
Yeah,
just to add to it.
And beyond that, we've got mysterious government researchers who want to use the captured mutants for their own ends. We get mutants in prison, so we get to see what prison gangs are like.
Yeah,
we get a cartel run by mutants.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love. I was like, all right, we're gonna do this hit, and like everyone's gonna use their powers to do their part.
Yeah.
Doesn't Trask comes up?
Yeah, that was a very late in the season. We have Trask that shows up, and he's pretty low key throughout the entire time that he's on screen. We actually get a little backstory about why he hates mutants so much and everything, and. I don't want to spoil anything what happens at the very end of the season when it comes to him, but I think we're going to have a moment where he finally has that moment where he takes that evolution. I hate to say that for when it comes to his character, but I think it will. He's going to play a big role in the second season.
Yep. Oh, yeah, no, there's a lot of characters that end up showing up later on. Like, they have confirmed that one actress in particular who shows up later on becomes pretty important. Minor, I'm not going to get too much into the character, but triplets show up, all played by the same actress, and the effect is actually pretty good. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it's actually they allude to the fact that there's more than one.
Yeah,
And you really don't notice until the big reveal, which I thought was really cool. When you think back to it, that's always great. We have a big reveal, and you think back to it, like, oh, they were telling you right then and there, what was happening, but you just couldn't put it together because there really wasn't enough information there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these characters, I don't want to get too much into them because they're kind of a composite character anyway, and I don't want to give away too much about them. But yeah,
they make a big difference in the very end of the season, especially.
So I'm just going to be ambiguous here and just call them the triplets, but they're all played by Skylar Samuels, who is going to be a main character in season 2.
Yeah.
So we are going to see more of them, and later on we do get some more nice references, including we see mentions of the Hellfire Club.
Yeah, that was surprising. I'm not surprised that they actually mentioned it, but I'm shocked that they're going as far with the references and the connection so early in this series.
Well, yeah, because that was the thing. It was, despite all the lore they were playing with, they were still keeping it relatively easy to access for the first, I want to say 6 episodes or so.
Yeah. To me, maybe almost to the first 10.
Yeah. Basically, when you started getting references like Trask, Von Strucker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too much into that because that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
Believe me, I could. This is something I'm actually kind of familiar with. And then of course, I think adamantium showed up in an episode as something that it's like this is indestructible. It's made of adamantium.
Yeah.
Which, of course, for those who aren't familiar, is the super hard metal featured. It's prominent in X-Men, although it didn't originate with the X-Men. I want to emphasize that. It goes back to...
it's mostly connected to Wolverine, and that's what people...
that's
what majority of people know about it is because of Wolverine.
Yeah, I believe adamantium goes back to Arthurian lore or something like that, though?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it goes back a long way. Vibranium, that's not so much, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah. I guess we should probably get into we don't want to give too many spoilers because this is a pretty spoiler-heavy series.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I think maybe midway a little bit it was kind of, which we talked about, same like the Netflix shows where it's kind of like it's a little meandering. It's not much going on, little things here and there, but then it really picks up by the end. But there are always little things here and there that are really spoilerish. One of the biggest aspects to me was the mental change, and it ties into Dreamer with Jace's character. And like I said, don't want to spoil anything, but he probably had one of the biggest moments to me in the whole season. And I think you know what I'm talking about when it comes to his family.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I did blank for half a second there.
Yeah. Like that moment, that was one of the moments where I have to say, to me, turned the corner for the show. When it made me say, okay, actually, I sympathize with the villains on this one right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did a very good job of kind of walking that path, specifically with the Turner character, of making him be relatable while being a jerk. And you can understand exactly where they're coming from and still not support them. And not be too upset when he does the things that he does later on in the series, later on in the season, I should say. I think he was probably one of the best handled characters in the whole season so far.
Oh my God. Some of the stuff he went through, like, I still didn't entirely sympathize with some of the points because he's still...
Right, he's still that guy, that's the thing.
Yeah, but for being a villain I didn't have full sympathy for, I still felt really bad for him at more than a few points.
Right.
Like, if there's a few ones I'm like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, even if he is my worst enemy. It's probably the easiest way to put it. I was just like, oh, no. It's just, yeah.
I have to ask you one more thing before we move on. Like I said, not to spoil too much, but who's your least favorite character by the end of the season?
That's hard because for a long time I really didn't like Blink that much.
Yeah, same here. I will agree.
And not to sound too harsh on your girl there, but Jamie Chung has never really impressed me that much.
No. She's grown as an actress over the last few years, but it's not like I'm not going to put her for some Academy Awards anytime soon.
The sad thing is, I think one of the only pieces of work she did any good in was one that really sucked, which was Dragon Ball Evolution.
Oh, yeah.
I thought for the horrible version of Chi-Chi she was playing, she actually did pretty well.
She was very, very good at it.
Which I'm like, and I feel bad about that because, like,
right, that's just crap. That's crap in a nutshell. There, like,
I know, and like, I didn't think she was that good when she was on those episodes of Gotham, and I didn't think she was all that good on the episodes of Once Upon a Time I've seen her in, and so it's just been like, I guess she's.
I know you're probably going to say like the best part she was when she was unconscious during that early part of the season.
She got better after the big thing that happened with her and Dreamer got sorted out.
Yeah.
And her whining got a little more tolerable.
Yeah, but then to me, that's when the whining switched to one character that I was sick of by the end of the season. Good old Andy.
Yeah, he was. That's true.
Andy, and not to like once again not to spoil too much, but Andy got emo, teen angst so bad by the end of the season.
I was hesitant to say it because I was honestly after Blink I was leaning towards Caitlyn.
Oh, okay.
Because don't get me wrong, like in general, Amy Acker is pretty good in this, and she's in general fairly talented. Like she's someone I've almost, but she always seems to get these characters that are kind of annoying, and it takes them a while to get used to.
Yeah, to me at first that's what she was for me, and then by the end, I guess maybe I'd just I'd grown to just getting used to her character being that way by the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her character did seem to mature a bit too, or understand.
Yeah, she started understanding that it's not just humans versus mutants kind of deal. Like I understood that, but yeah, I think I just got used to her character being the way it was.
Mm-hmm. It's probably the easiest way to describe it because in general we got some pretty solid acting from the character. Like I said, if characters were no one was really that wooden.
No, not purposefully so. Like if you had, like for example, Thunderbird. I mean, he had his moments where, of course, he's going to be the strong, silent type, and he's kind of wooden, he's kind of stoic. But you understand that is a part of the supposed to be the personality.
Yeah, he always came off more stoic than wooden to me. Like it still felt like when he needed to actually like do stuff, he felt at least competent.
Right.
Which was key. And it was funny too because like I mentioned, JB Chung as being someone who's never really impressed me, and like she got better. Like I wouldn't still say call this her best role, but I mean like I don't know what I would. Which is the unfortunate thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of a no-win situation. It's like if I call this her best role, it's like would I call it her best role? But I wanted to mention because Elena Satine, who plays Dreamer, I've only seen her a couple of things, but she was terrible in those, and she was good in this.
She was really good in this. She really was.
I think it's because I've seen her play mysterious characters before, and I bet that this character is not so much mysterious; it's just kind of I don't even know how to describe her.
I mean, she was kind of deceiving, kind of.
Yeah, but she was less. She was duplicitous, but she wasn't like mysterious.
Yeah, no, she really wasn't. I mean, she was mysterious in the sense that she didn't want to let you know exactly what she could do with her powers.
Yeah, she didn't want to give away all the deets.
Yeah.
But no, in general, I would say it's probably decently comparable to. It really is kind of Fox's answer to the Netflix Marvel shows because it kind of ties into the X-Men cinematic universe, but not really. Because I think they've mentioned before that they're essentially treating it like one of the alternate timelines that was created because of the Days of Future Past movie.
Right.
And that's probably about right. But for what it is, it's pretty good. And it definitely gets better as it goes on. Like the first few episodes are really rough in points.
Yeah, I really struggled to get through like the first maybe 3 or so episodes. And once it got past that, then kind of like I started binge watching a little bit more. And I enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah. That's probably the easiest way to put it. Especially most of episode 2, Blink is unconscious.
Yeah.
And then, most of episode 1 is just the characters getting together, which means you have to get through a lot of rough stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of exposition, a lot of to me, like that was the worst acted episode overall. Like everybody just kind of felt like comic book characters really come to life.
Yeah, well, because they had a lot to cover.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Look, they only had so much material they could cover. They couldn't afford to focus on the acting and the chemistry yet. Oh, this is a thing I've heard that some people do is they tend to do a lot more read-throughs of the pilot just to make sure the actors can get their chemistry down better, so they can get stronger. And plus, they usually have, like in this case, the pilot was directed by Bryan Singer. They usually bring in a big director for the pilot,
right?
In this case, even with that, it just didn't. But you know, it happens. Like, yeah, by the end, I was totally hooked, and I am.
Oh yeah, by the end, I'm looking forward to season 2. I really am.
Absolutely. I think that's probably all we'll say about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to what is indeed Hot Darkest Hour, which was me. If you've ever started to do an impression and realized there's no way in hell you could pull it off and try to abort but don't quite succeed, that's what just happened with me. That's what happened, because I keep thinking I can do impressions, even though I really can't. I don't think there's any impression I can really do.
I do Dusty Rose.
Yeah, I do a
Dusty.
I'm not going to do a Dusty. I'm not feeling it. If I were reclined in a chair with a glass of fake scotch, I might be able to do a good J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Let's just get on to the movie, which is Darkest Hour, not to be confused with The Darkest Hour, which is a 2011 movie whose tagline is Survive the Holidays, which is apparently about an alien invasion, which I never saw, and I don't remember at all. Oh, wait, is this the one with the invisible aliens?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, it's not that movie. What we're instead talking about is the Academy Award-nominated movie Darkest Hour, which is... Oh, yeah, I should also mention Golden Globe winning, because it stars Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill, and covers Winston Churchill's, essentially his first month in office.
It was funny when you were saying about Jamie Chung. And you try to figure out exactly like what would her best role be, and then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you had Gary Oldman. What the
hell would his best role be? Because he's had so many good ones.
Right, for the complete opposite reason.
One of the popular things to bring up is like he's even played characters like in awful movies. Like he was in the movie Tiptoes, where he played Matthew McConaughey's twin brother, who also happens to be a dwarf, and sounds like Jeff Foxworthy. Including the mustache, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's just like, that's weird casting. Not to mention it's a movie about dwarves called Tiptoes. Why was this made? But hey, Gary Oldman was memorable in it, so...
Hey, Gary Oldman deserves a paycheck. We got to do something here.
Yeah, well, yeah, like, just off the top of my head, he was Harry Potter. What was his character name in Harry Potter?
Oh, hold up.
Sirius Black.
Yeah, there you go.
I kept wanting to say Remus Lupin, which was Sirius Black's friend, which is a mistake. And yeah, he was also he of course is in one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time, The Fifth Element, as the villain Zorg. And he was in the Dark Knight trilogy as Chief Gordon.
Yep.
And he was also in a very good movie called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which I highly recommend if you want to see another movie where Gary Oldman just acts the hell out of everything.
Yeah.
And in this case, yeah, he plays Winston Churchill in I believe it's a combination of prosthetics and CGI, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. They actually. He was almost unrecognizable. Really, I had no idea it was him for a few minutes. I forgot. While I was watching the movie, I really forgot that was him.
Mm-hmm.
Such a great job of getting him ready for that. Just to look like that. That was incredible.
Yep. And yeah, so it essentially follows because it's all pretty much in May of 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, he gets made Prime Minister of the UK. For those who don't know, Churchill got made Prime Minister after Chamberlain was forced to step down for being too weak to, he was too weak
to take on the Nazis.
Yeah. And so he gets chosen to be the successor, because at the time he was I want to use the proper term here, the First Lord of the Admiralty.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yep. And so he takes the job despite being just this whirlwind of a man. And what's kind of fun is like a lot of this is seen through the perspective of his secretary, Elizabeth Layton, played by Lily James, who's had a hell of a 2017. Yep.
Yeah, incredible.
Because she's also in Baby Driver, which was a very good film.
Yeah.
And I believe was also nominated for a couple of Academy Awards. But I mean, like Darkest Hour is nominated for, I think, Best Picture. I want to get the whole list here.
Let's see here.
Yep. Best Picture, Best Actor, and then a bunch of
production design, cinematography, makeup, and hairstyling, which it's got to win.
It's probably winning Best Actor. I mean, I'll be surprised if it doesn't. I'm just gonna put that out there. I'll be really surprised.
Yeah, there's no way that he can win this one.
Well, he won the Golden Globe, and that's usually a good indication.
Right.
And there's really no reason he shouldn't, because he's only been nominated, I think, 3 times, and he really is one of the best actors around.
Yeah, people don't appreciate him enough.
No, if you put Gary Oldman in a movie with Anthony Hopkins and Bryan Cranston, and let's throw in Morgan Freeman in there, if those 4 guys in a movie together somehow can't make it work, that's one impressively bad script.
Yeah,
or impressively bad director.
Absolutely terrible work from everybody but them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would refuse to believe they're the ones at fault. Like, I really want to see that movie now.
Yeah.
It's just the 4 of them having tea.
It's an imaginary movie he just came up with, and I definitely need to see this.
Yeah.
I didn't know I needed this until I knew I needed it.
And now they have a pet lizard that talks.
And it's the new Hawk Wild.
And I don't know who it's going to be voiced by, but we really shouldn't get off this tangent. Yeah, no, so it's pretty straightforward. If it's the first month or so, and what's kind of funny is Dunkirk is almost like a sequel.
Yeah,
movie Dunkirk.
The most interesting part of it was the fact that how much it ties into now Dunkirk without it even being connected because of the time frame of this movie and when it's being focused upon.
Well, that's one of the big things that happened this year is some of the big Academy Award contenders. There's movies that are essentially sequels to the movie you just saw. Like in this case, Dunkirk is essentially a sequel to Darkest Hour. And then The Post, which is about the Pentagon Papers, it ends, just small spoiler, which is for a movie based on history, so not the most offensive spoiler, it ends with them starting the Watergate scandal, which you can easily see covered in All the President's Men.
Yes.
Which, granted, a much older film, whereas Dunkirk and Darkest Hour came out the same year, but there's too much to really say about this film, though. It's just really well made. Gary Oldman's performance is phenomenal, and it carries the film because it has to.
Right, that was the biggest problem with this film to me overall, was just coming into it knowing exactly what we're leading up to. Mm-hmm. So, like, how do you make it really interesting? And the strength of Gary Oldman's character and presentation as Churchill is what makes the entire thing interesting, because there's several moments where he's in his room and his wife comes in and she just sits with him and tells him how he's kind of losing his grip with reality and sanity and really who he is.
Yep.
And you just see how cracked and broken he is at several points, just getting up and walking around and like preparing himself for these daily grinds. And I just think that Gary Oldman pulled off a phenomenal job of presenting the hardship of trying to lead something that at that time just looked like it was insurmountable.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Like he's got all the physical performance, he's got all the verbal tics and everything like that. And it's kind of funny because there's debate about whether or not how much of this film truly happened, because a lot of this is closed door stuff, and there's debate.
There's one scene I want to talk about in a few seconds. I want to get your opinion on.
Okay. Yeah. But despite all that, like it works really well to capture what was going on, and and they did thankfully include a lot of Winston Churchill's real quotes, including my personal favorite, which I'm going to warn now, there's going to be cursing. It's not going to be an F-bomb. It is going to be an S-bomb, though. So I'm just going to set this up now. At one point, Churchill's on the toilet, and someone calls him and says, like, "Sir, the Lord of the Privies wishes a word. It's like, tell the Lord of the Privies I am currently lording over the Privy, and I can only deal with one shit at a time." Those who don't know, Privy is a toilet.
Yeah.
I think the Privy also meant something else here, but I just love how he finished that line.
Yeah. It was one part with Lily's character when they're looking at the newspaper.
Oh yes.
And they V for victory.
Yeah, he's doing a peace sign, V for victory.
Yeah.
Problem is, he did it with his fingernails facing the camera.
Right.
Which in British slang means up your butt.
Right.
Which is why, just one middle finger is still bad in the UK, but why doing middle finger and index finger isn't better.
Face it with your finger toward whatever you're pointing at.
Yeah.
I really got a good kick out of that one. That was a wonderful scene.
And apparently that is also legit.
Right. That's what was even better about it.
I know it's one of the weird things because they drag it out, and at first you're like, "Where is this going? Why are they dragging this out?" And then you see Churchill just laughing about it. I'm like, "Oh, that's why."
Yeah.
It's a really good humanizing scene, which is one of the reasons this movie's so good.
See, that is a perfect example I was talking about a few seconds ago. When you said a very humanizing scene, like that point, because one is actually based on reality, and two, it's such a minuscule moment that it just feels natural.
Absolutely.
Whereas, and I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm going to spoil this one scene and very late in the movie when he's on a train.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and it's kind of like this rally cry moment.
Yeah,
that is so absurd.
It's so perfect though.
Right, it's so funny because it's like, okay, this wasn't a movie that's supposed to be kind of historically accurate, and it was just a regular movie scene. This is a regular movie, and we're just having a scene that's not based around reality. I would be really into it, but like the longer it went on, the more absurd it got to me. And then when he leaves, he doesn't look back one time, and he has like a little bit of a tear. He's getting choked up, and once again they hooked me again. Like I was getting out of it, and then they just had this one more where he looks back and he leaves the train. He hooks me again.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. Yeah.
I believe the scene is entirely fictional, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe anything about it. It's actually factual.
And the funny thing is, like, most people weren't entirely in awe of Churchill at the time, because I mean, well, he was ultimately the leader of the UK probably needed at the time. Some of them did seem he was a bit of a warmonger.
Right.
But I mean, he's still such an infectious, because like I said, the performance really does seem to capture the man.
Yeah, it really does. That's the thing. Like, it just feels like a very dramatized version of him in that one moment, but it just worked, and it didn't work at the same time. Like, you got to pull yourself out of the scene and say, like, okay, this works from a film perspective, from just a cinematic perspective, but from a reality and a narrative-based perspective, it's just so absurd.
Can I be the Mike from Stranger Things again for a moment?
Okay, all right.
Just want to point out, there's no way there was that many black people on that train.
You know, the first thing I thought about when I saw it, I said, dude, seriously, black dude is not doing all that right now.
I know, that's kind of the thing. It's like they probably got the most diverse group of people on that train car, and I'm like, there's no way. You know,
when I saw that was the first thing popped in my head. I thought about the same thing. I was like, dude is not doing all that right now. Yep.
I'm not saying
it's not possible.
Yeah.
But during that time, it just doesn't feel right at all.
You know what's real kick in the pants, though?
What?
John Hurt was supposed to play Chamberlain.
Really?
Yeah. And that would have been great, because like the guy who played Chamberlain was pretty good, but I would love to see John Hurt's final performance be.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of eerie, because Chamberlain died of cancer, as did Hurt. So.
Yeah. Which, of course, I love the fact that they did, which they do a lot of times in movies. It's just give a little post-credits information for people that maybe didn't know or weren't in the know about what happened afterwards.
Yeah, the wrap-up. Yeah, that's very much a staple with biopics these days, which is for the best. Because, I mean, I really prefer this wave of biopics we've been getting that focuses on, like, just a very specific chunk of events in a person's life. They don't do the full story. They don't do, like, the childhood where something meaningful happens. Because, I mean...
Right.
As you know, as many meaningful childhoods as people can have, a lot of times they're kind of boring.
Yeah, and you lose so much information between, because you had to have these giant time skips and gaps.
And of course,
that
go ahead.
Could be very influential in the evolution of whoever this person you're talking about is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because they always want, and of course, when the question is when you're having a character age like 30, 40 years, is like, when do we use the star actor to play this character?
Right.
Like, was it The Greatest Showman? As Hugh Jackman, who I believe is like 50 now. I'm going to quickly look up how old Hugh Jackman is. So if you'll just bear with me for one moment. Hugh Jackman is currently 49. And
wow.
he was supposed to be playing a guy who's like in his 20s initially in The Greatest Showman. Like, well, because he's like, I've come to ask your daughter to marry me, says Hugh Jackman, looking about Hugh Jackman's age.
Right.
So I kind of appreciate the fact that this biopic is like, all right, he just has to be Winston Churchill for 30 days of Winston Churchill's life.
Right.
And like, what do we do? Yeah, a few years ago we had 42, which was the Jackie Robinson movie that was more about just Jackie Robinson's first year in baseball.
Right.
Which was probably a really good way to do it.
Yeah, it was the best way to do it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. They also focused. I don't want to get off on a tangent about that movie.
Yeah.
Although it stars Black Panther.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, no. So it was. Yeah, and I think one last thing we want to touch on with Darkest Hour that it's probably worth mentioning is the interesting style choice they did, because we very rarely left London, and when we did, it was aerial shots mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Like we only saw the beginning, the bits of World War II through aerial shots with like the occasional scene of dudes in like the military base or whatever, but then would pan up to aerial shots and we'd see like bombing runs via airplanes and stuff.
Exactly.
But it was very, very minimal, which honestly worked quite well.
Yeah, I thought it just shows you how really, even though he was in the middle of it, still how detached Churchill was from the actual action.
Yeah, because the action didn't matter. It was the people, and, like, that was about it. It was just locations and people. It wasn't like bullets fired, bombs dropped, or whatever. It's just like...
Right.
So, you got enough of a connection to feel sympathy for the characters who were probably about to die or, about to engage in a bloody battle. And you get... the feeling of ultimate detachment when you're that far from the front line.
Exactly.
Because we get stuff like a scene where Churchill goes to the war room and they kind of details just how screwed they are.
Yeah, just how screwed they are. Like, that was a big moment, and like you said, in terms of how, just to show you how detached, especially the people that are giving the commands are from the people that are actually on the front lines. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize just how bad of a situation these people are suffering from, especially in correlation to what we see with Dunkirk.
Well, what's kind of a shame is I would have loved to see them include if they were, but it would have gone against the film's motif to generally celebrate Churchill. Like they were afraid to show him as a flawed man, which was good.
Yeah. They did a great job in exposing the fact that he wasn't this orator he wasn't this great orator that had everything going for him, and he understood exactly what he was doing at the time.
Mm-hmm. No, he was still absolutely flawed. But like one of the things I would have loved to see is if they showed a scene where he secretly activated, or he was planning to have a group of like dudes who were essentially assigned to start a resistance movement if Britain was invaded.
Mm.
And one of the things they were told to do was, if that happens, kill known collaborators. And one of the people named is the guy who's probably the closest they have to a villain in this movie that isn't, of course, off-screen Hitler. Because, of course, World War II movies that are going for Oscars are always better when Hitler isn't shown on screen.
Right.
Because there are a lot of them. But, yeah, in this case, the closest thing we have to a villain of the movie is Lord Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's a Viscount, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought he was a Nazi sympathizer. He may have just been more of a pro-negotiation guy. And
he gets trying to make sure that everyone came out looking good, and specifically himself. Yeah,
he may have just been political cretin more than a sympathizer.
Yeah, that was more. That's why it came across to me. He was trying to be politically correct.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, there's a lot of theories that he may have been one, and apparently Churchill did have plans if Britain got invaded and he himself was killed, that Halifax was to be killed as a collaborator.
Yes, as well.
Supposedly that's the thing that happened with that, so I would have loved if they referenced that conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's like, on the chance we're invaded, you need to kill this guy. Get on it, George Orwell. What? Just that would have been...
That would have been something.
I appreciated that they didn't use any excessive historic characters, because that's another problem you usually see with movies like this.
Yeah, they had the ability to, and then just take advantage of it.
And thankfully, they didn't. They didn't have a George Orwell anywhere. They didn't have Christopher Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Or what's his nuts? Can't think of the name. Wrote James Bond. Ian Fleming.
Oh yeah.
I cannot believe it took me that long to remember Ian Fleming. Yeah, like you didn't see. It's like, Commander Fleming, come in. No, they were pretty good. Like, the closest they had was they had FDR appear, but only by voice.
Right.
So, it's... I don't want to entirely compare it to the King's Speech, but that's probably the notable Oscar.
Yeah, that's probably the closest you could come up to a comparison.
Yes, if you like the King's Speech, you'll probably like this. Especially if you've already seen the King's Speech, then you won't need an explanation for why the King is stuttering in this.
Yeah.
they have him they give him the stammer or the stutter or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. They do a great job of sounding like him.
Yep. It's definitely a good movie. I mean, it's so not good. If you're tired of this type of thing, you're probably gonna hate it. But
yeah, and considering that we had a Churchill movie, like you said, come out earlier, and Dunkirk and everything else, it might be a little kind of heavy just because so much came out in 2017 of the same type of stuff. So
not to mention The Crown had John Lithgow play.
Oh yeah,
there's been so many good Churchill performances lately.
Yeah.
But no, it's totally understandable why Gary Oldman got nominated, and it'll probably work. It'll probably win. I
won't be bad at it.
No, it won't be. It won't be confusing why it won.
Right.
Maybe Best Picture just because of all the other movies it's up against, but
but for actor, no.
Yeah, that's not going to be. It's like
do Gary right. Hashtag do Gary right.
Well, who's he up against? He's up against Timothée Chalamet for Call Me by Your Name, Daniel Day-Lewis in what's supposedly his last movie ever, but most people didn't really care for. Okay, that's not true. They went to see Phantom Thread and they just kind of thought, huh. And then, of course, Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out. Now, that would be a nice one to see him win, but I don't know.
I love the movie, but I just can't see him being like best actor.
Maybe a screenplay win for that movie, but
yeah, definitely.
It was nominated for that too. And then Denzel Washington for Merman J. Israel, really?
No.
I understand people love Denzel Washington, and he's an amazing actor, but why was he not?
No.
That's going to be the one everyone's going to question if he wins for that.
He's not going to.
Yeah, he probably won't.
He's not going to.
Like if it's not going to Oldman, it's probably going to Kaluuya or Chalamet. Maybe Day-Lewis, just because he's probably retiring. But I mean, I would guess if it doesn't go to Oldman, it'll go to one of the other two.
Yeah, but they've already given. Yeah.
Gary Oldman's number one. He seems due. He's
like to me, this is like Gary's year. This is the one. It's got to be.
Only way it could be more guaranteed if he was playing a beautiful British person. Granted, Winston Churchill does kind of look like a baby, and babies are beautiful. Just saying. I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah.
We're talking about whether or not you consider Winston Churchill sexy like a baby, which is just horrifying.
He's a baby.
So I want to thank James for joining me as always.
Oh yeah. Now I just can't get that image out of my head.
You're welcome. Don't worry, people will probably listen to this in the morning, so they'll have all day to get rid of it.
They'll think about it all day. Yeah. They're not getting rid of that site.
And oh man. Well, next time we're gonna hopefully get something else stuck in people's heads. We're gonna be talking about a few things, including, well, hey James, is there a Marvel movie coming out in a week or so?
I don't know, but I did see a trailer about something.
Yeah. I think it was a trailer for a movie that's supposed to have something in it that you don't see in the trailer.
Yeah.
Instead, you just see a man screaming on a table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably
my kind of movie.
Yeah, that's the movie with the black thing in it that we're going to be watching, right? That's the Marvel movie with the... Okay, I should stop now. The final episode of this podcast is going to be you getting sick of me making jokes like that and just killing me.
There you go. That is it. YouTube has cut us off.